I call the member for Vaucluse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Speaker, I rise to speak about the Bondi Bowling Club in my electorate. For nearly 100 years, Bondi Bowlo has been a central part of our community. Bowling clubs have a special place in the heart of many of our communities, Mr Speaker. They are part of the DNA of the Aussie culture. Whether it's barefoot bowls with friends on the weekend, a Friday night feed with family, or providing a way for seniors to socialise and to stay active. They host birthday parties, anniversaries, grand final parties, and I'm sure, Speaker, that quite a few people in this place have had the odd election victory party at their local bowlo. They are places that unite communities. The humble bowlo may not be the ritziest location in any communities. You are more likely to find decor in them from the 1970s than 1923. And while they may not be fancy, or 2023, while they may not be fancy, they are often a place in our community where you will find the greatest amount of warmth and of joy. And Bondi Bowlo is no different. They are a volunteer-run organisation. They do not have pokies, and they genuinely exist to serve the community. From school kids to retirees, the Bondi Bowlo offers a lot to the people of our community. Now, many of us in this place will remember the iconic Australian film Crackerjack. It's the story of Cityside Lawn Bowls Club fighting to save their beloved bowlo from being taken over. Well, the Bondi Bowlo Club in my electorate is now in a similar fight because the Minn's Labor government has hiked their annual rent from $22,000 a year to $95,000 a year. That's over $70,000 in an increase in one hit. But it's not just my local bowlo fighting against these huge rent hikes, because right up and down the state, bowling clubs have contacted me to tell me that the Minn's government has also hiked their rents. Bowlos like Penrith, like Seaforth, Ashbury, Hunter, and so many more. All up, rents on Crown lands across the state under this government have increased to a tune of $6 million. And why? Well, the answer that the Premier and the Minister gave to news crews on the day was fire trail upgrades ahead of the fire season. Now, Mr Speaker, if the government has to reach into the pockets of local clubs right across this state to balance its budget, then we are in deep trouble. Speaker, bowling clubs have been part of our Australian history for over 150 years, but sadly, since 1980, Sydney has lost nearly half of its bowling clubs. Now, this recent decision by the government only puts further pressure on the remaining bowlos in communities across our state. Speaker, when the president of Bondi Bowling Club, Matty Graham, reached out to me about his huge rent increase, he was genuinely flabbergasted about why the government had decided to rise rents by such a huge amount. Now, Bondi Bowlo isn't saying they shouldn't have to pay rent increases. They're prepared to pay increases that are fair and reasonable. All they are asking is for the government to meet them halfway. Hiking anyone's rents suddenly by such a huge amount cannot possibly be seen as reasonable. Now, just a reminder to the Minister, Bondi Bowlo doesn't have pokies. It is a small not-for-profit run by volunteers. And Speaker, my local community has rightly been outraged by the government's decision to go after local clubs, and thousands have signed petitions calling on the Minister to reverse his decision. So great was the interest, Mr Speaker, that the Bondi Bowlo's fight was picked up on media right across the country, from the Today Show to Sky News to 2GB Radio, every news channel. The interest was so strong because we love our bowlos, we love our community organisations. They are the beating hearts of our neighbourhoods, and we don't want to lose them. Over the weekend, the Bondi Bowlo held a community event to highlight their plight, and in doing so, they offered Crown lagers on Crown land for a price of $4.20 to reflect the 420% increase. And Mr Speaker, in today's inflationary environment, no one was going to knock back a $4 beer. But the reality is that it'll be last drinks if the minister doesn't reconsider his decision for many bolos across the state. Maddie has told me that if there isn't a reduction in their rent hike, they'll have to consider cutting back opening hours, run fewer community programs, and won't be able to invest in our community. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to see that. Please go down to the Bondi Bowlo, have a schnitty and a beer. I'm happy to shout.